Welcome back to Lit versus Genre, everybody. I am Steve.
And I'm Jeff.
And all right, this chapter, Jeff. I mean, it might as well say story time right here. Like it might as
I was waiting to hear this story.
because this is the most story time of all story time chapters. This is the king of story time chapters. Yeah.
I mean, well, so that's what I want to talk to you about is because obviously we've talked before, like let's say early, in the book when they're in Edmondsfield, and we get story time about like Manetheren or what the stories about just the world and stuff, right? So that's very kind of, I mean, it's kind of connected to the characters, it's connected to their history, right?
Hmm.
But it's not about any of them specifically. Then we get story time relatively recently about Tom, Maryland, right?
Hmm.
When they first get to Camelin. And so that's story time about a character that we're not with anymore. That doesn't. It's kind of like one learning his motivations after the fact, which we talked about. But this one to me felt a bit different. So I was curious if to you it was different or if it was just lumping into that same kind of story time.
Well, I mean, yeah, this background to get about Lan. Am I more interested in it?
Mhm.
Kinda. I just think there's another way of getting this information across. Maybe even spreading this information out a little bit more than just like Papa Faldara here like laying it down for us. I don't know. It's not a super engaging way to learn this information, I don't think.
I Yeah, it's tough, is one of those things we kind of butt heads on because for me it is really engaging. It's the way that it would happen in this world to me where people would tell each other things because we don't have like TVs or like recordings like it would be about culture where stories are told,
But let me
especially
stop you
stories
right
about
there
money now.
again. Let me stop you right
Mhm.
just because this is the way it would happen in the world doesn't mean it's engaging storytelling.
Well, but it can be both. Like it helps with immersion because it feels like, oh, I'm there. This is what it would be like, and I want to be there. I completely agree that it would be fallacy to say that anything that happens in real life makes a good story, of course,
Yeah.
completely. But in this particular case, since it is a character we're with, it is a character that's got a mysterious past, and this is someone that would know about him, and it's super relevant to the situation because he even ends this story saying, Lan's like the best of the best, like you're going to be safe. Like he's using that story to even talk about their current situation. And that's to me why this story felt different. It is quite long, for sure.
Hmm.
But this one felt a lot more relevant to the immediate situation. And also is relevant. I don't want to give, I mean, I guess we could give spoilers for the next chapter, people assuming we have read these. But it also informs a relationship element for Nynaeve and him. So it does tie to a lot of what ends up happening right after it. Um,
But nothing
yeah.
surprising. I mean the like
Mm,
facts of this, I don't
mm,
know the
well,
facts on the ground, but that Land's the best of the best. I know that. I'm aware of that.
sure.
That
Thank
Nynaeve
you.
has squishy feelings for Land. I know that. I'm aware of that. Like none of this is like was I particularly super engaged in because it was yeah, backstory plus stuff I already know.
I guess the main new element would be, why Lan is the way he is and how that could affect a potential relationship between him and Nynaeve.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess as you're saying, as a counterpoint, what if we didn't know that and we just saw him say small things about why he can't do, and then later it's revealed in a different way, I guess. But I'm guessing that
Yeah.
George has already felt he was doing that with how they've been acting around each other previously.
Yeah, I think you can work this information more organically into things than having like let me sit down and lay it out for you as a story. Like it's just I don't know. It's just my preference. If I'm reading like a lot of backstory, it just gets to be I don't know. I have trouble caring or getting like super excited about it. I do. I think of all the story times. I will grant I was more interested in this than the story
Mhm.
times that are completely unrelated to our characters.
Right, right,
So I
right.
certainly like that story time better, but I still am not super duper into it. But
Mhm.
I mean, just to kind of maybe I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say about the land story time, but I feel like Moraine's story time is way more problematic and way more janky than land story time.
Okay, okay. So let's shift one to the other. I'm interested to hear you say that about the land one, right? That it was more engaging because of those elements, and I do think it is, especially from a writing standpoint, nice to compare them to each other because obviously we've had many story times, right? And
Mm.
part of me does wonder, is it just story time overload, right? Like if we had never gotten story times like this, and then we got the one about land, would that feel different? I don't know. I don't know if it would really matter to you that much. Um, but I do also wonder on the other side, because we keep getting story time, like this is just natural for the world, and so it feels more cohesive. So I don't know. Anyway, but thanks for talking with me about those differences. But yeah, let's dive into this one. Now you
Oh,
said janky and problematic. So
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
let me say one more thing about Lance Storytime.
Sure, go
Um
for it.
so like heavy I'm still feeling heavy like Superman vibes from a lot of the
Okay,
story
go.
at different points.
A
And
good
then
name.
well, we bring up Candor, but also that like his parents sent him away. Like I was feeling very like Krypton
Mm,
vibes. This is the doomed town, and we
right,
know it's
right,
doomed, and we're gonna send our infant son away before Krypton explodes, and
right, right.
like, and then again, Kandor is there, and I'm just like, I keep feeling this like vibe, which I guess is also like a Moses vibe or something, which is where
Mm.
Superman stole it from, but. I just wanted to note that. I don't know if anybody in comments knows, was Jordan a big Superman fan? Did he like Superman? Because I just keep feeling it both kind of a little bit with Random Self and now with
I feel like we
Lan
need
as
a
well.
picture. I just imagine I had this picture of Jordan holding like a Superman coffee mug. Oh, and we're like, we knew it. We knew it the whole time.
If it's out
But
there, if anybody has
let's,
photographic evidence, please post it down below.
please do. I would love to see that.
All right, so
Right.
Marine comes back after. I don't know if there's anything else in here that I was really that I needed to talk about. I don't think so. So we get this update on this intense questioning of Padan
Hmm.
Fain.
Right.
And this my one thought about this, Jeff, as we were reading it. I was like,
Back to me.
well, A, this feels like super duper like the end of a Scooby Doo episode where we just pull the mask off and then explain everything that's been happening the whole entire time
Right.
that you didn't know in like as exposition-y way as possible. And I also kept feeling like, why are we explaining all of this? Like,
Hmm.
who cares about Pat and Fane? The only thing that I can like, cause like I was like waiting for her to say something where I was like, this would have impacted anything that
Hmm.
happened in the story. It's like it's like like if a TV show like zoomed in and showed you there was a character sitting in the background of like every scene, but they didn't really do anything or have any impact or interact with the scene in any way whatsoever. That's Padan Fane. Like, apparently he's been here the whole time, but who cares? Right? Like, even like the coming to town thing. He had been coming to town for 3 years under the Dark One's influence. And I couldn't even understand, like, why are we waiting till the third year? I don't know. She probably explained it and I just blacked out from the sheer
It,
exposition overload because I was like, I don't care. It doesn't. Well, one, I think like you like this because it
Uh,
maybe wraps up like a loose thread that I
right.
wasn't even thinking about and like didn't
Sure.
give two craps about whatsoever. So like I'm really bored going back and retreading this plot hole that wasn't even in my conscious mind at the time.
Mm.
So I don't like doing that. I don't want to do that. And then like how we have to over explain how he's been with us for the rest of the narrative. I was all also like completely flabbergasted by because I'm like who cares that he was here? Who cares? Like I'm guessing he's going to do something else because we always have to have mystery going on in the background. There's like one thing that Moraine's like, "Oh, he's holding one thing back from me," and I guess that's going to be important at some point, but like I could not figure out why he's here or why we care about him at all. And I did not want to read for pages about his little side adventures this whole time.
Side adventures with the Trollocs
Yeah,
sleeping in the
side
car.
adventures with Trollocs, escaping
Um,
Trollocs, like getting away from one fade just to get picked up by another
right.
fade down the road. Like
Steve, you're
what?
telling me you don't want to learn about Trolloc culture? Um, no. Okay, so I'm gonna try to step back and see it from the way you are.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it does seem odd that none of this seems to directly affect the current plot. Like the one thing that seems like it could is the one thing that is apparently he's holding out, which is information about the Eye of the World. Um, and that would definitely seem relevant if he knows something about
Do
what
we even
Balsamon is
know?
doing.
Wait, do we know it's
Hmm?
relevant to the Eye of the World? How do we know that what the
Yeah,
one thing he knows is relevant to Eye of the World?
it's because she says "Eye of the World," and he reacts in a particular way that makes her think that she knows more.
Uh,
She says, "When I mentioned the Eye of the World, Fane clamped his jaws shut, but I felt something knowing behind the silence. If only I had the time now, but we cannot wait." So she's actually not
why
going to
is
fight.
she bringing up Eye of the World? Where was this? Do you have a page number?
This is if you go to the very end of the chapter,
Uh,
and then you're going to go inward like 2 pages, basically.
okay.
So.
Ba, 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 ba,
It
ba, ba,
starts with
ba.
pray that it's pray that it does. You're right
Ah,
there. Yep. And it's right in that paragraph, kind of at the end of the pray that it does paragraph.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, so to your point of like a more plot focused narrative, right? I chuckle as I say this regarding Wheel of the Time. Um,
Mwahaha.
right, well, so yeah, it would seem like, oh, we got this person and then we learned something important for the coming battle. But obviously that doesn't really seem to happen because the one thing they could have learned is she doesn't. And then from at least what she's saying right here, we cannot wait. So she doesn't have time to keep questioning him,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it does sort of make us wonder what's that point of him, right?
Yeah.
Though on the flip side, or I can see from your perspective, like, what's the point of him? On the flip side, if he had revealed some really important nugget, I don't know how well earned it would have felt because it was off screen. Um,
Well,
so
that was the other
I
thing.
imagine,
Like, why was this off screen?
right.
Like, what? Why?
We got to say with tight Rand perspective, bro. We can't,
Well,
we can't
why?
mention
Why
that.
does Moraine have to drag him off? This was also like the same weird, like little plot contrivance in the very beginning when they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have the meeting, and you kids stay outside." Like I don't know why she had to drag him off to question him about this stuff. Would it have even been more engaging as a thing to hear him ranting and raving? I kind of think this would actually be better if we
Mm,
heard his voice here.
I bet we will in the show for sure
I mean, it
because it's
wouldn't.
going to
I don't know if it would have
follow
been a
her more.
lot better because, like, I feel this is janky. Like, on like even like the ridiculousness of how he's keeping up with them and
Mm.
like how he like every step along the way is in the background. It just feels ridiculous to me. And like not
Maybe he could catch up
yeah, that he
or
could catch up. It's just not credible. He was like already in Barrelon. If not it felt like he was there before. They like run into him the morning. They get there in the night. They run into
Yeah,
him
and
that
Rand seems
morning
to,
when they're
yeah.
out. I kind of felt like he had beelined it for there, straight from Two Rivers, but no, he was behind him chasing him. He has to get his own butt across the river somehow, which I might have missed how he did that. Just
I think it was,
everything felt like
yeah.
so contrived. Like we had to jump through 20 hoops to explain why he was always there at every moment. And it does not feel elegant at all. It feels massively contrived.
Yeah, because I was gonna say he was with the Trollocs initially. I think in Barrelon he had maybe escaped. That's the first group he had escaped because Rand sees him outside, and Rand promises not to tell the Aes Sedai that he's there. Then we don't see him for a long time, presumably when he's picking up with the second Fade, right? Then the next time we see him is in Camelin, where he's the beggar, right? So he's had it even worse. So we have kind of seen him in each big city that Rand's at. So assuming he's traveling with, the crew that's got horses or Trollocs are carrying him, as they say, that didn't seem quite as crazy to me. The one that seemed wild was how did he live through the Black Winds, like the Machin Shin,
Right.
that's supposed to like destroy everybody,
And notice who
right?
asks about that. Egg
Right.
is the plot hole filler now. She's like her purpose in this novel, which I was wondering, what is her purpose in this novel? And now I know. She's the one who voices the plot hole so that Jordan can then patch it up for us.
I, I feel like they cycle around. Last time it was Nynaeve being like, "What was that?" So but yeah, I mean, they're gonna ask those questions to be like, "What's up?" Obviously we've talked before about, I like getting those resolutions. You've said you don't, so I'm not surprised to hear you say this about it. I do wonder, as you do, if it would have been more effective just to have it in scene. I think he probably wanted the story time about Lan a lot, and so. I mean, I guess it could have been. I don't know. I just feel like if Agamemnon had heard the things that Fain says, then he'd be less likely. I mean, it's very much an Aes Sedai thing to keep secrets and keep information. So her going off and doing that on her own, maybe using the power in a way people can't watch. Um, you know, yeah, I do wonder from a writing exercise though, like would have been more effective to have it happen
I mean,
there
it
for us to
certainly
see
would
it.
liven it up to
Yeah.
hear his voice and have him
Right, and be all
talking
crazy.
about being all crazy, and at least it does something to make the exposition go down a
Right.
little smoother. I don't know if I still would have liked it, but it would have been
Mm.
something more interesting for my brain to grab onto. Like,
I could see it.
I don't even know if I'm still buying this barrel on part. So when we had gone across the
Okay.
Terran, the
Mhm.
Trollocs um went to go back to a Waygate in the Mountains of
Right.
Mist. And then they sent Fane across alone.
Right.
What? Why? What? Like, huh?
That is strange. Why would they send just him? What are they staying there
That
for?
doesn't make any sense. He thought he was free then, but before he reached Farallon, another fate found him, and I just highlighted it because I was just laughing. I was like, "What? Like, hey, this is so random."
The Fates are just out and about,
Yeah,
bro.
they're just they're just hanging, they're just sort of chilling and hanging around. And he runs into another one. It's like comical for one, but I don't feel like I'm supposed to be laughing at this point. But I am kind of laughing at this point.
I mean,
Um,
because it's happening to a bad person, I guess we're like, we could be laughing, but I think you're laughing for more
yeah, more
ridiculous
because
reasons,
this
as you
feels
said.
ridiculous to me. And then so then I'm still not sure how he gets there just right at like the same time they are there. Um,
Mhm.
and then like as it goes on, like then he gets away from them as well, and he just kind of then just develops a new power where he can just feel them, and like okay, I can believe that. Although I was also unclear on like every time when he's going back and forth from the two rivers initially, he's going back and she says something like the Dark One is doing something to him,
Right.
but it's like very vague what exactly the Dark One was doing to him, and I was like, I don't. okay, what is he doing? He's making him dark? I don't know. Like, what is he doing to him? And I thought that was just weird and like I didn't like it because I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Um, yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I not to dish too hard on it, but when I was reading it, Jeff, I was like, I feel like if you went to your boy Brandon Sanderson and said, Brandon, is chapter which one is this? 43? Is
um,
this one the low point of the whole series? I think he was 47. Is this a good chapter, Brandon? Is it? And I would want I don't
he's a
think
big
he would
Yuletide
say
fan too.
yes. I don't
I
think he
don't
would
know.
say this is a good chapter.
It's so funny because yeah, I mean, I didn't have that. I mean, I knew you were going to call it story time, but I feel like in the past I've been better able to call where Steve's like, I hate
Hmm.
this. And this one I just didn't quite see that coming.
Hmm.
I do agree that the Maryland part is weird because if they couldn't get across the river and they used a way gate instead, I mean, that's a pretty extreme way to get across the river.
Hmm.
Seems like you'd go to White Bridge or something,
Hmm.
um, or or somewhere. But anyway, I don't know how. That means he got in the Way in the Mountains of Mist. He came out also, I guess, in Berlon, found them. But from that description, it sounds more like he met another Fae. But he didn't want Moraine to know that he was there. So I guess he met Rand, thought he was free, and then after he left Berlon, counted another Fade, and then went to Camelin. Well, they went back to the Mountains of Mist, which was the wrong way, and then
Oh my
he went all the
goodness.
way to Camelin himself, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, this was another
map-wise,
part
that
that was
doesn't
janky. I
seem.
sent an
Yeah,
illusion towards the mountains, fooled the mind
right.
draw, but not feign. Didn't full feign. A, why not? And B, again, why, if they're like capturing him and recapturing him, why are they letting him go all the time? Like,
Yeah,
what?
I mean, I guess the point is that so you asked like what the Dark One was doing. It talks about turning him kind of into the Dark One's hound, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I guess the question would be, if he is the Dark One's hound, why didn't they trust him to sniff
Right.
out where they were, right? But I guess if they were seeing tracks, they would follow the tracks as opposed to him, kind of thing. I did wonder. Some begin to credit him. I'm like, who's the some? Are the Trollocs talking on the side, being like, I think this Mindrill doesn't know what he's doing, or this Myrdrill doesn't know what he's doing over here. We got like Narg's cousins having a conversation about this. But so yeah, I mean that part breaking down exactly where he was in relationship to the map does seem a little sketchy. But I also do hear your opinion overall of like, why do we care about this crazy person? I think people that do want answers, that do want to know what's happening on the dark side of things, this is fun. And I think this is much more elegantly done in later books by just getting to see the bad people's sides.
Mm,
Like this feels again, like Jordan hadn't quite come into his own and how he was going to show the bad people's sides, but he
mm,
wants to. You can see that like in him, like he wants to tell you what's happening to the bad people. So
mm,
this me almost feels like a flavor of what's to come because I love hearing what the bad people are doing, what they're plotting, and like the chosen stuff are super interesting. And there's other just bad people you meet, like tons of like dark friends and stuff. And so getting to see what they're doing is neat. And this feels like the first sort of time of that. But yeah, it's not as nicely done as if we could have just been in his perspective or something, or
mm.
if we got to hear him in a raving way say all these crazy things. Right, because it would make kind of more sense if he's saying crazy stuff, because then we're
Yeah.
not taking it completely as truth as we are Moraine's explanation.
So,
Yeah.
okay, well so you're telling me the purpose of this, the reason why this is in here is not because we super duper need Padan Fain to be in Faldara right now. It's because Jordan wants to show us what the bad guys have been doing, and Fain is like this plot device to give us an insight into what they've been doing this whole time.
Uh, I think that's part of it. It's hard for me to say more without spoilers
Mm,
um, about it because we do see Moraine sort of emphasizing like how twisted Fane is and everything. Um, So yeah, it's tricky for me to fully answer that. To me, he always felt in this part kind of like this to me, I think is why people talk about this first book echoing Lord of the Rings so much. Because to me, he's just Gollum in
Right.
this stuff, where he's crazy, he's, acting weird, he wants to find these people. He like senses them, he senses like the boys and everything. Just like Gollum was about the ring. And how he like hates everything, right? He hates because there's scenes even of like if you remember from the Lord of the Rings movies about like Gollum being taken to where the now I'm like I was gonna say Dark One because I'm not letting him remember the name, right? Or even Mount Doom, Pit of Doom being somewhat about Doom. But anyway, point here is that it's a very, very similar narrative that we're getting with Padan Fain to Gollum kind of thing. So I feel the first reaction of why I would say it's here is that I think in sort of a subtler way, Jordan's figuring out the type of story he wants to tell and how he wants to tell it. And I feel like this is him sort of playing around with telling us more of what the bad people are experiencing kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I hated this. I hate Padan Fain. I don't care about him.
Right.
I cannot even imagine in my mind what he could possibly reveal that would justify all this contrivance to get him here. I just like don't know. Like if he pops up in the last page and throws off a mask and says, haha, I was the dark one the whole time. I still won't be like
Yep.
it justified this awful, awful chapter.
We have to make t-shirts of like Padan Fain playing be like I was the dark one.
I was
It's perfect. It's perfect. What I did like about this, just to put out there, is I did enjoy Moraine tracking what Baalzamam could do, and talking about like, 3 years ago we could do this, 2 years ago we could do
mm-hmm,
this, and kind of seeing that. Now, again, does it really change anything? No. They're still going to do their mission, right? It's
mm-hmm.
not altering any of that. But it's more kind of, emphasizing the need. Does that need to be emphasized? I mean, I think what you're experiencing here is like this is a chapter that most people in narratives these days would not have, right?
Mm-hmm.
This would not be like this was the calm before the storm, I guess, sort of. Um, but not really, because we're learning all these bad things as we then venture right before we go to the bad place. So how much is this, raising the stakes? And I think what you're saying is it does not at all get me to the part that actually matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's an exposition dump, and I think no matter what your justification, you have to be careful about your exposition dumps. Like they gotta feel, you gotta do them at times. I get that, especially in genre fantasy,
Mhm.
like, yeah, there's gonna be exposition and it's gotta be in there, but like, I don't know. This one doesn't seem that important to me that
Right.
there wasn't some other way to have whatever this one nugget is. I can't imagine there's not another way you could have worked out your plot where you just didn't need this idiot like in the book. Like there has to be another way where we don't need this idiot who I don't care about.
Fair enough. Fair
I mean,
enough.
we'll see. I'll see when I find out. I hope before the end of this book, I do find out what his one purpose is here. But like, I can't imagine it's good enough to
I
justify
mean,
this.
I would say the main purpose we see in this one is that he's how the Dark One found them, right? Like he's the one that brought the Trollocs there. He's the one. He's the Dark Friend that caused, the terrible battle and well, not battle, but the raid at there. So I feel like that's sort of his role early in the story. And I think you probably would have been fine with that if that was it. But the
Yeah,
fact that he keeps coming back up,
yeah,
you're like, why, right?
yeah.
Just before we leave, I do want to say that I think well, two things. One is I'll kick off with, I really enjoy how, again, I just can't say the dude's name. Elgelmar,
Mm.
keeps like throwing shade on the boys and being like, these bumpkins. Like just the way he calls them like country oaf, he mutters to himself because
Sure.
of the way Rand talks to Rand and stuff. Like I just enjoy seeing that. Again, alternate perspective from him. Well, alternate
Yeah, I don't
perspective
think it's
to
alternate.
him.
I think
Yeah.
it's the clear facts on the ground, right?
Right, right. Well, yeah, I'm just saying we get to see other people's view of these boys and the way they're acting, right? Which I love. And then what I love was, especially your reactions to all this, hearing Lan's story. I was like, I should have some more story
Oh my
times in my
god.
novels. I don't do enough. So
Oh my
it's
god.
just funny after this whole conversation, right? Because I never do something like that involved. I'm like, should maybe I should. So anyway, all right. Anyway, moving on to our next chapter, the blights.
Yeah, no comment on that. The
I
blight.
think I know how you feel.
I like the blight symbol. I like the symbol for the blight.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Um, yeah, so in here, I guess the only thing I really want to talk about
Mhm.
here is the is the love, the Nynaeve land love thing, which goes from
Um,
like basically it goes from 0 to 11 here in this chapter. Like not zero. It goes from like it was like a 1 or 2 before
did you
this
not see her
chapter.
listening to that story?
Yeah, she
She was
was
so quiet, so attentive,
so
listening
more
to the story about
attentive than
Lan.
Egg was, you know? Like,
Yep.
yeah, it's all like hints and googly eyes to like, man, like this, like, such a like a big outpouring or a big, like, um, declaration of this love. And then Lan's like,
Mhm.
if I wasn't Superman, I could love you, but I am, Superman of my people, and I can't love you. And I'm like, "Hmm, I feel like part of this is another thing where like I I feel like this is another
I love it.
difference between literature and genre. That genre
Interesting.
wants to just tell you this, and that people who like genre just go, okay, I've been told this, I accept it. So like, yeah, they love each other. You've set it up. Great. You've set it up because you dropped these hints in the earlier chapters, and now I just believe it. But I don't believe it because I have
Mm.
not seen these two characters together enough. Have not really gotten enough interaction between these two to feel like there's this epic love. Like, if you're going to put epic love in your book, let me see that relationship. Let me see those characters with each other. Let me actually feel that love. And I think a lot of times what a genre does is just state it and then go, that's good enough. Let's keep moving. And like, I don't. So this, like, they're not perspective characters. I'm never really with them. And now just automatically I have to be like, oh, she's not just like, interested. Like in the previous chapters, I'm like, oh, she's got the hots for this guy. I get that. That makes
Right.
sense. But this has gone now to like, ooh, you used to be a king. I super love you. And I was like, what? Come on. I like maybe off screen they did have all these moments where they're really building this relationship and building this connection, but it sucks not to have seen it, not to have read it, and then just to have to accept it when we get to this point.
But Steve, there was nothing we could have cut before this to show
Got a
you
little
those
story
moments.
time. Got a little story time, and you can put it in there.
I thought you were going to say the traveling people. I
Oh
was
my
be like, stay
gosh.
away from my traveling people. So,
Well, that was
so
the
double
other
this.
thing. I was like, the one love that I actually buy in this whole entire novel is Egg and that traveling
Aaron,
kid. That
yeah,
was the only one where I felt like they had like some scenes together. They had that dinner together, that they like
yeah,
went off and did something, and I'm like, yeah, I buy that she's into him. That's
right.
the only one. I don't buy any other like love plot that Jordan's setting up in this book.
Well, we haven't had too many yet. I mean, because we got the big waffler that is Rand. I thought we'd be
Oh,
talking about Rand being Egwene's warder in this one, so we'll get to that because that's in here too, right?
yeah.
But we got the waffling couple, right? That
Mm.
aren't for each other. Um, So yeah, that of course no. Yeah, the main sort of more traditional one, if you will, has certainly been Egg because we got to see that through almost viewpoint, not quite, because Perrin was right there watching it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this, we've seen these moments between them. Um, Obviously, I was going to joke and just say, this is how people roll in this society, right? They just go straight for it. I do wonder how much of this can be justified due to the fact that they are going to what could be their deaths
Mm-hmm.
here soon to go into the Blight. Now, I will say that that hasn't been emphasized quite much because we just got off story time hearing how great Lan is, so it seems like Lan, if anyone can bring them in and out alive, it's him.
Mm-hmm.
But if these two were worried about loving each other, there's that. But they don't really talk about it in that way. They do talk about more sort of after, like her finding another man and that sort of thing. So I feel like we're not getting to lean on that as much as we could have. Do you think that would have been more effective to focus more on the feelings for now because there could be no more tomorrow
I mean,
kind of thing?
maybe, but then I'm not sure of his like rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Because his rejection is kind of premised on, I have these other duties,
Right.
I have these other things, and I want you to have like a
Right.
real man who can give you things. If they're both convinced they're gonna die, then, you know, everybody would be
I
boning if they were all
tr-
right. Like it wouldn't,
so I,
like
I
that
guess
wouldn't
I guess
really
where I
hold
want to
water. What he's saying right here is what I'm saying.
totally, totally. He couldn't say the same things for sure.
Right.
I was more talking about how quickly their relationship escalates in terms
Mm.
of declarations of basically love right here. Would that be more digestible?
Yeah, but I mean, I still, maybe it's just like, again, what I prefer versus what the
Sure,
typical
sure.
fantasy fan prefers. I want to see the relationship. I mean, that's what's fun. It feels like like wanting to have these relationships in there because intellectually your characters should have connections and relationships, but then not show the part that's actually fun about that, which is the development of that, which is seeing it happen. The reason people like love in a story is not just because they're supposed to be love in a story, it's because you get to see the people fall in love and there's like the thrill of that.
For sure, for sure. And I should say something before our fans out there that are genre readers say, Jeff, say the thing. So, yes, this story, I don't know to say the whole story, but one of the criticisms leveled at it is uh, the mm, the relationships, the love angles. Not always, not all relationships, but that is often a talking point. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, I mean, if anyone's asking like, what's a great fantasy story for love interests, this is not usually
Mm-hmm.
going to be the one that gets brought up. So this is not necessarily a good example of love and that sort of relationship, at least in this first book, I would definitely say, because there's just not that much of it. And
Mm-hmm.
as you said, we haven't really gotten to see a great deal of it. Um,
So would you say
so,
this is him feeling stuff out again? Because I would just cut this. If it's
mhm.
not important, if you're not going to invest in it, why is it here?
Uh, I mean, I don't know. I think that's then a question of is it better to have something that's maybe not the best executed or just not have it at all?
Mm,
And I think some people would prefer to at least have it, even if it's a little ham-fisted, than just none. Obviously, that's not everybody. But yeah, I think again, he's learning as a writer through this, right?
mm.
He's just got a lot of balls up in the air, and obviously his passion is the history, the cultures, that sort of thing.
Right, right.
And so I feel like these other elements sort of, he's like, oh, yeah, no, I do need that. And the funny thing is, he wrote, as far as I understand, like romance stories for a bit,
Interesting.
right? So I do wonder if maybe he was burned out on
Hmm.
maybe that type of writing. I haven't read those books, so I can't say how, much of that is there. But just hypothesizing, was he like, I want to write something that doesn't have a lot of that, but I do still want some of the deeper love elements. But I don't want to do everything, as you're saying, to kind of earn a moment like this, right?
Hmm.
Maybe, maybe. So I can't say for sure because I wouldn't want to say that he doesn't know how to write it because apparently he was. But how well did he do it? I don't know. I think they were like kind of Civil War romances, that type of thing. They were called, what was it, bodice rippers. I believe that's what was the name. Is one of them in one article I was reading about it. So yeah, no, it's a fascinating aspect to talk about due to the fact that he's got a background in doing it. I think most people would agree that there has not been the traditional lead up to get to what is said in this moment. I love what is said in this moment. I like the way it's said. I think just because I like the idea of it, of someone being noble enough to be like, I'm not right for you, I want happiness for you, kind of thing, and genuinely mean it and not be using it as just a way to break up with someone or say,
Yeah, I was
I
thinking
don't
in
want
the
to go on a
back of
date
my
with you, right?
mind, he's not that
Right,
into you, naive. Naive, he's not
right,
that into
exactly,
you.
exactly. But I feel like what he states here is genuine, and I feel like we get that because of this line he says, because he goes far when he's like, "I will hate the man you choose because he is not me, and love him if he makes you smile." Like I
It's
just
just a good
like,
line. I mean, next time,
yeah,
anybody needs to blow off
right,
someone, just kind of remember.
right, exactly, exactly. So, and maybe, my wife tells me that I've like, like, after she read this first couple books, she's like, "Oh, I understand who you are now," because of this. I swear I've said this to someone and meant it, because of just like the situation that we were in at the time,
All right.
So it is funny. So, how much of this do I like just because I like the what's the philosophy again behind it. I think that's so much of what I like about the Wheel of Time is are the philosophies behind action. So I give it a pass because I like the philosophy it's passing off, even if it hasn't done the build up you would expect for an emotional moment like this. And it is a shame because I feel like a lot of this writing I really like right here.
Hmm.
I like the way she asks without asking. Like I love her lines in this, and it is a shame to me that it can't land the way it's intended to land for everybody because it
Yeah.
doesn't have the setup.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's sad. It's sad to me, really.
Yeah, I feel like this is asking you to buy the payoff without
Mhm.
having gotten the setup for it.
And
And
it
so
to
it just
me,
doesn't hit me
yeah,
the same way because
right,
I'm like I don't believe this. I don't maybe not that I don't believe it, but I haven't gotten a chance to experience it, so it makes it hard for me to feel it.
right. No, I hear you. And it's not like it needed that much more,
Hmm.
really. Like we have Nynaeve as a POV
I
character,
know, a couple
you
more
know?
naive
Like
POVs. Yeah.
we always talked about how the Nynaeve POVs were super short,
Right.
and that how we how about this like is because she's annoying, right, or whatever.
I had
But
forgotten she was a POV character, Jack.
amazing, amazing.
Because I was
So
like,
yeah,
these aren't POV
right,
characters. We didn't get to see them. And I'm like, oh, wait. One of
right.
them absolutely was.
Yeah, whatever we did, and so like having more of her and Lan. I mean, we did. She was combative with him, right? Like that's
Hmm.
how she flirts with him, basically.
Right.
But even just a little bit more of that, or a little bit more of him, I feel like so just barely anything more. And I think this could have really landed. And so, the show is an opportunity for, I'm sure, them to do more
Hmm.
with it. I would be beyond shocked if they do not emphasize this relationship more in the series to then have this moment.
Robert, just another 100 pages. Why not? I mean, why you're already gone this far.
Right? I think a couple, like a couple paragraphs, honestly, in two chapters, I think we would have had it.
Hmm.
So anyway, what about the wafflers and Grand agreeing to be
Well,
in
yeah,
order?
again, those the now we get like a declaration of him. Oh, I feel like this new sound effect is coming up a lot.
Oh,
Fall. I
oh,
feel like that got brought up in a previous chapter too.
but
Um,
was that the sound Moraine
I
made
think that's the
previously? I'm gonna
sound
look that up
Moraine
while
made.
we're.
Yeah, and I was like,
I'll,
oh.
I'll, I'll check. I'll check. I know where it is. If it is what happened.
So then here's one where like now Rand is all deciding like, oh, maybe I am into egg. And I'm just like, oh, just stop, dude. Just stop.
Amazing. For the record, Moraine did say "fa"
Fa.
as they got about her staff after they had gotten out of the way. Good. So
Fa.
yeah, it does seem like he's like, "Oh, "fa." This word is
This one
great.
is awesome.
Um, I think what we're seeing here is that the Ogier Lil is just copying Moraine.
Oh, there you
So
go.
you
There's a
heard Moraine say
character.
something.
There we go. Okay.
That is good.
I like it.
But did you? I see you got a lot of highlights. Were any of these ones you wanted to hit?
Just more Min is the
Hmm,
downfall of the relationship, which I don't know,
of
maybe I could
course.
be into. And yeah, and then we just dive right into the Nynaeve stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Boom.
the only other thing about this chapter, I was like, the Blight was interesting, and it's another
Mhm,
moment where Mia's like not a fantasy reader.
mhm,
Basically, like both this and the ways feel
mm.
like really like magic on another level. Maybe it's
Ah,
because it's dealing with like the landscape and
right.
space in a way, like because everything else in the novel, you're in this world, you're pretty grounded in it, that it's this kind of medieval world
Sure.
of knights and kings and stuff, and it doesn't feel that strange, and there's magic in it, people can do magic things, and you're like, okay. And then now you're getting into like dimensional stuff, and like into like the way this landscape has been changed can't really make any sense with any sort of physics,
Sure.
with the latitudes. It should be cold, but it's hot. And there's like all this decaying. So this is all just magical whatever that has been done to this place. And
Mm.
like, yeah, it just feels like very it makes a very different feel. I felt this in the ways as well, to the extent where I was like, this is not going to be in the show. Like we're not going to be
Yeah.
wandering around in here. This also feels similarly like maybe not as way out as that, but it feels like extra magic than what I'm like kind of used to and what I feel like I've been set up with previously. And am I accepting it? I feel like intrinsically resistant to it. Like that I want like
Mm.
it to be a little
Interesting.
bit more explained or something, that I want to know like what is like the thing with the
Why does
ways. I was like, okay, men can use magic. The kind of craziest thing I've seen men do with magic is when Luz made a big like exploded everything and made a big mountain.
right.
And now
Sure.
you're telling me just a bunch of these dudes got together and they're like, oh, cool, you know what we'll do just as like a little parting gift? Most people would like, you know, buy a bottle of wine or something and be like, oh, here you go. But no, these dudes are like, we're going to make a massive interdimensional portal from all these different. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. That's like the biggest thing I've ever heard anybody do, and it's almost like they're doing it as this like afterthought. Like what else could these people do? They could do, in
Yeah.
my mind that means they could do like literally anything at any time.
I mean, they do have some stuff. That is one reason why anyway, Amazon's planning to make a show about, or no, there's going to be a movie. Wait, I can't remember with everything that's happening. They're going to make something about the Age of Legends
Mm-hmm.
when, people could just do stuff without worrying about the taint. But yeah, I mean, that's when I say that like this story has magic and Game of Thrones to me does it, like this is the type of stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, we got a fireball here. No, as you said, like their parting gift was an interdimensional waygate system that then becomes tainted and has its own creature inside it. Like it's crazy.
It's
Or the
crazy.
Dark One's touch with the blight, like literally making the land diseased
Mm-hmm.
and creating, these killer insects and other creatures that
Mm.
are there. And like all these, because we see Trollocs and Mirajol talk about a fair amount, but there's the Drakkar, there's other things like, so it really goes in on this in a way that I feel Harry Potter does. And one of the reasons that I think Harry Potter is so successful is because it is so immersive with its, not just, oh, we've got people with wands, we've got candy that's magical. We've got people in photos that like move and
Mm.
hang out, right? We've got stairs that move. We've got, paintings that talk to you. We got ghosts that hang out. Like it's just infused with this
Right.
sense of
But
magic,
each
right?
of those seem very small to me. Each of those
Mm,
examples like feels like not like dudes can do literally anything. Like it feels limited in a way
mm,
that makes me feel more comfortable because like if you have dudes that could literally do anything, like what how are they picking which things they're gonna be doing and not doing? Like it just feels like wow, if they can make interdimensional portal, man, they could have just done anything. And like can't the Aes Sedai currently just do a lot more, like do something totally bonkers crazy compared to oh we're just running around and maybe what I'm feeling is overpower, like
Mm,
which is a thing that like I feel like has sunk a lot of genre franchise things that I like I feel like the reason every Matrix sequel has sucked is because it was overpowered. And once you make it so he can do anything, it's like
right.
what how do you even constrain it to be able to build your plot? And then the constraints all start to feel arbitrary because you have to kind of literally invent them since you've let this genie out of the bottle. Um
Mm,
and I felt that a lot about the ways. I feel a little bit about it here. Like I would have liked to have known Moraine to come in and maybe do give me a little exposition of like why the Dark One's presence does this particular thing. Um because it
mm.
just feels, I mean it's cool, it's coolly described, but like it just feels so like random and just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this one, he's just going more for, evil lands are sick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like evil is a sickness, the darkness is a sickness, the dark one. And so that disease spreads out from that, central point. Um, See, I don't know if I'm just wondering because I'm imagining like that explanation. I do hear about the ways. I mean, I think it's sort of set up because in the prologue, you've got people teleporting basically. So it does show that they've got that ability. And so the ways is kind of a permutation on that. And don't get me wrong, I do agree about the separate dimensions, but that is then, as we talked about in our ways episode, I don't see them cutting out that, or if they do, I know. I mean, I don't see them cutting that because we've seen pictures of the waygates, right? But also, like, that's the thing. Like, there are other areas that are explored, which to me is again what's super cool about the again, just the system and how open it
Mm-hmm.
is. To me, I thought this might strike you more as almost a Doctor Who kind of situation, right? Where there are these sort of other aspects to consider. But I do also hear what you're saying, but you don't want to make people able to do too much. I'm sure that's why he's got it set up that so much of this knowledge was lost and current Aes Sedai can't do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I almost would have rather if like the ways had always been there as part of this world or something versus that these dudes specifically made it. Because I mean, it just seems like a
Mm.
wild thing to be able to do. Um,
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if they tapped into a system that already existed, though, or
mm,
if they like made it from scratch. The idea of why it existed was because the breaking of the world moved the Ogier studying around so much, and then they were all scattered, and so they were trying to help them like be able to travel from one place to the next without needing the tainted guys, like the
mm.
tainted, male Aes Sedai. So there is sort of a rationale of why that would be their parting gift. Um, but yeah, I mean, I do hear you that making the entire interdimensional system is like you just made your own dimension.
Right, you just you just like snapped
So
your
I,
fingers and you made this whole other dimension. It's big.
that's big.
That's
That's a
big.
lot.
That's big
I mean,
game.
I think tapping into it might seem a little easier, if that was the concept. But I hear you that that is not specifically described, so it is easy to go either way on it, and one way does seem rather extreme.
All right.
So. But I did like hearing you say, because I was curious if you did find it interesting, because obviously this is more in the moment. We're getting to see where they're going into. Um, and I do think it does create a sense of, alienness because, yeah, it should be getting colder and it's not. And I
Mm,
thought it was a fun setup where Lan previously, when they were complaining about the cold, was like, it'll be hot in the Blight. And it's like, well, that doesn't sound good.
mm-hmm.
And then it is, right? And it's just kind of nasty and humidity and all this stuff. And yeah, you're getting to feel that we're going to an evil place and described in another way besides just here's an evil creature.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Cool. So how many more chapters we got of this? Four,
not
49,
not
50.
many,
We
bro.
have
I think there's only
five more.
53.
We,
Do we have 5 more? 50.
yeah, 49, 50, 51, 52,
Yeah,
53.
53. We might have
So
to do a three-parter on our very last one
yeah,
because we're
maybe
getting
we'll do
close.
that. We'll do a
Yeah.
two-parter again, and then
Mhm.
we'll do a three-parter, finish out this baby. Um,
Because actually, there's not that many pages left in terms of page count. These
okay.
chapters are getting shorter. Like
Hmm.
this last chapter was pretty darn small. There's only 47 pages left,
Okay.
honestly. So that in some cases, that's been 2 chapters, so cool.
Okay, well that sounds good, everybody. We will see you back for that, and we have some more show content coming out as well. So keep
There
up with all that and
crazy show content to talk about
crazy
next.
show
So
content. Here we go. We're gonna go record that right
crazy.
now. Okay, thanks everybody. See you next time.
See you then.